one of the great things obviously getting a chance to work with the guy, and now he's got commercials, he's got a new book out, is like your childhood memories of the greatest player in a sport, and suddenly you get to know him and talk to him, and that's what's going to occur here. I grew up in Orange, California. If you know anything about Orange County, it's south of Los Angeles. Orange abuts Anaheim, and Anaheim was the Anaheim Stadium. That's where the LA Rams used to play. And again, when I was a kid in Orange, there was no bigger superstar than our next guest. His name's Eric Dickerson. He, of course, he wasn't just known for having a 2,000-yard season. He was known for the upright running style, right? He had the rec spec glasses, and he was a bigger-than-life figure. And I think with the Rams' success, his storied career is being recognized in combination with his new book that's out. Eric, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Greg?
Good. There's a lot I want to get to. I want to actually go backwards with the book. Mm-hmm. Okay, a lot of people, when they have a pitch, we do at the end, we throw it in.
I got you.
But there's a lot to your career. When did you start working on it? Was it during COVID and you were bored? Oh. And you sat down, you're like, all right, I'm getting it all out. I'm emptying the clip.
Man, it's way before COVID. I started talking about this book 15 years ago with a guy that was a writer from Indianapolis. He was wrote poetry at IU. And he said, Eric, man, we just sitting there. He said, man, you got such great stories. He said, I'm going to come down one day. I'm just going to write some stuff and just dictate it. I said, okay. So that's kind of how I started. And he passed away in a fire. And he sent me all the manuscripts. And then
Wait, your original writer passed away in a fire?
Mm-hmm, yeah, yep. Mm-hmm.
That's a wow.
Yep, that's a wow. And so finally, I had it in my office. And I never did anything with it. And then my friend Gustavo Miguel, he had read some of it, and some of the stories I told him, he said, Eric, man, you need to do a book, man. He said, your life is so interesting.
Agreed.
And so I said, okay. I said, well, find me a writer. Find me a guy. So he found me one guy. We thought we had a couple of guys. And you know how you know, when you talk, you want it to sound just like you.
Correct.
So one guy wrote something. I read it, and I won't forget. It was like, oh, and I said, golly, gee whiz. I'm like, oh, hell no, that's not how I sound. That's not how I sound. So then he said, Eric, I got a guy. He said, I read a book about a guy named Greg Hanlon, and it was a topic that was very boring, but he made it very interesting. And so, okay, so I talked to Greg, and we talked, and he said, Eric, I'd love to try to write your book. I think I do a great job. And finally, he wrote me a draft, and I read it. I said, sounds just like me. I said, this is the guy. And so that's how we got started. It took about 3.5 years, really, to get it from start to finish.
Wow. And let me paint the picture for what it was like in my memory, okay? In the 80s, the Lakers were the biggest things on earth. The Dodgers were great. The Angels were actually good in 87. They lost to the Red Sox. The Raiders won the Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
And in the NFL, your team was not your quarterback. Your team was your running back, right?
That's it.
Because it was, and yes, Joe Montana was, but it was also Roger Craig. And yes, it was Jim Plunkett, but it was Marcus Allen, and then Marcus Allen, Bo Jackson. But the Marcus Allen run in Tampa in the Super Bowl was the most famous moment. And like you kind of go team by team, and we talk about all the time. The Seahawks were Kurt Warner, right? Yes, They had Steve Lawrence, but it was Kurt Warner. Everybody had, and so. And you were, it wasn't just that you were a great player. You were taller, literally taller than everybody, right? And you ran upright, and you had a big personality, naturally a big personality. And you came kind of out of Texas where, football. What was your existence like in Los Angeles? Because remember, you're playing in Orange County. It's a little bit different. The NFL was viewed a little bit differently. What was your existence like during that time when it was star after star after star all playing for these LA-based sports teams?
Well, really, I didn't think about being a star. When I came to L.A., I just wanted to be a good football player. I wanted to be a great football player. And I had a chance to start meeting stars. And that was like, wow, I won't forget our doctor was Dr. Curlin. And I'd never been to a Laker game.
That's Curlin Joe, by the way.
Joe, right?
Yeah.
So he says, Eric, you want to go to a basketball game? I said, sure. So the guy said, man, Dr. Curlin sits on the floor. I didn't know what the floor was. So I go to the Laker game, and I see, man, Magic comes over, Kareem, and James Worthy.
They're coming over to
me.
You.
Yeah,
right.
to me, shaking my hand, and then they announce it. I get a standing ovation. I'm like, oh, my God, I'm embarrassed. I'm like, dang. So that was kind of my first inkling of being a star in L.A. Then I went to a restaurant I used to go to on Friday nights called Nicky Blair's. And I saw Nicky was the owner, and I look over and I say, that's Clint Eastwood. I said, Nicky, he said, yeah. He said, Eric, he'd love to meet you. I said, no. He said, no, come over, meet Clint. So as I walk over, when I get close to him, he said, hey, Eric, how you doing? I said, I'm a big fan. I said, oh, Mr. Eastwood, I'm a big fan. So that is just kind of how it kind of evolved around L.A. And I didn't look at myself as being a star, because one thing was We were in Orange County. You're right. Orange
Yeah.
County is outside of L.A.
Yes.
To me, the Stars were in L.A.
Yes.
And we played in Orange County. And, Greg, I mean, I'll say this much. I mean, I love playing for the Rams. I still loved it. I just wish I could have had my whole career there, but it didn't work out like that.
But there was a lot. There's a lot people don't remember about the old ownership with George Frontiere.
Yeah.
They don't remember where the NFL was. And let's in the book. Do you talk about SMU?
Of course I talk about SMU.
So do we get real with the cars and with the cash, or are we going to do the 30 for 30? Like, man, I don't know how that's stuff.
Well, first of all, I talk about everything, but let me tell you something. Yes, I talk about the car. And yes, my grandmother bought that car for real. Let me explain this story to you so you'll know it. It's in the book. So it's
a Trans Am, right?
It's a gold Trans Am.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't Smoking the Bandit was the black Trans Am. Eric Dickerson was the gold Trans Am.
Gold Trans Am, and the car cost $14,500. I remember the price of the car. So I saw the car. It was at Leo Johnigan Pontiac, right off the 10 freeway. And I stopped by it a couple times, looked at it, and I told my mother about it. She said, "Oh, okay." And so some of the A&M boosters knew that I liked their car. So my grandmother lives in Houston. Now, this is not my lady who raised me. I was adopted by my great-great-aunt. People think that was my grandmother. My grandfather lived in Houston. So they said, "Okay," Eric said, "we're going to meet you over at Leo Johnigan." I said, "Okay." So we drove down, looking at the car. And I just, walking around looking at other cars. And they came out and said, "Okay, here you go, the keys." And I'm like, "Huh?" So take it. And I didn't find this out till later because I think I was still in the NFL. I retired from the NFL. And Johnny Mae Shavers is my grandmother's name. My grandfather's name was Horace Shavers. I said, "Mom, Johnny Mae, how did that car come about?" She said, "Oh, Eric, I'll tell you how the car came about." She said, "We bought the car." She said, "We bought the car. A&M gave us the money back for the car."
Sure.
That's how the car got paid for. So, like I said, my grandmother bought the car.
You weren't lying. You just omitted just a slight. It's a slight.
That was it.
The rec spec goggles.
Mm-hmm.
What is your vision issue? Is what?
Terrible. Just like I don't even know. It's horrible.
Like read something like this.
No, if I take these glasses off, I can't see far away at all.
Okay.
I mean, so for me to try to play football without glasses was crazy. I mean, I had to wear my school glasses when I first started playing. But the rec specs became synonymous with me, and
yes.
I hated them things, man, because they would fog up. They protect your eyes, but I couldn't see, and I couldn't wear my school glasses anymore. So they came up with rec specs, and I got a pair, and they became famous.
Upright running style, right? So Roger Craig had the high knee, right? And yours was upright, and it seemed, wait, you can't run through dudes upright. They're gonna. Did people tell you you're gonna get hurt? Like what?
I heard that all the time, man. I won't forget we played the Saints after my rookie year, and I was at the Pro Bowl with Ricky Jackson. We were sitting on a wall that we'd sit on and talk. He said, "Eric," he said, "man, I got to tell you, man." He said, "I want to tell you something." He said, "We played you." He said, "We saw you on film." And he said, and that's they had the Soul Patrol. The Saints would hit.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, we're gonna break his big ass. He runs pretty. We're gonna break him down." And he said, "Man, I gotta say, the harder we hit you, the harder you ran." He said, "It was crazy to us." He said, you really wasn't running upright. And that was the thing. People thought I was running upright. The only time I ran upright when I got an open field. Now it's time to get upright. That was my style.
It was your style. You also had the Jerry curl working.
Had the Jerry curl working. Yeah.
Okay, so what is that like in terms of getting ready for a game? You got sweat, you got activator, right? This is 80s.
What you know about the activator?
Come on, man.
You had some. You had some activator.
Yes, you had a lot of stuff going on. Like how much? Like and you know how football coaches are. They're probably like, "Man, you worried too much about your hair. You get that stuff on your hands. You can't hold on to a football."
I didn't worry about my hair. I didn't because like you'd wash your hair after the game, you put the activator on, and it'd be curly again. That was it. I mean, boom. And before the game, I was getting ready for a football game. This is old school football. You worry about how you look.
but old school football to have a Jerry curl. There's football guys like, "Man, he's pretty. He cares too much about his hair."
No,
you know.
You know what I cared more about? My uniform. My uniform look. That's what I want to look good in that uniform.
Okay, 29. Did you want that number?
You know the story about that either?
No.
Okay, so when I got drafted, I won 19 in college.
Yes.
So when I'm 19, when I got drafted, I got to the Rams. I said, you meet with the trainer. I said, "Well, I want number 19. He said, "You can't wear that. That's a quarterback's number." I said, "Okay, well, what can I have?" He said, "You can have." We had 29, 25, 32, and 34. I said, "Well, I'll just take number 25." I said, "Okay." So in the LA Times, you look it up, I'm holding up number 25 on draft day. So when I get back, my best friend says, "Man, so what number did you take?" We talking, he picked me up.
Who
I
is
said,
it?
My best friend, Charles Drayton. He
Okay.
lives in Orange. He said, he's living in Orange County. He said, "What number did you take?" I said, "I took 29. No, I took 25. He said, 25? you take that's a slow ass number. Why you take that number? I said, what numbers they have? And I told him, I said 29, 20. They said, why you take 29? I'm like, oh yeah, man. So, man, I could not sleep that night. I said, I got to change my number. I couldn't hardly sleep. So I called back to the Rams the next morning. I said, hey, Mr. Hewitt, I want to change my number. He said, well, Eric, I'm sorry, but, you're in L.A. Times, hold on, number 25, so you got to wear 25. I said, you know what? I'm not coming in. He said, you'll be 29. That's how I became 29.
Hey, Eric Dickerson, listen, I know you got to run. You got this whole thing. I do want to ask you, like, the Rams now, you never would have left, right? Because
oh man.
But listen, let me again. People forget Georgia Frontiere, like she wouldn't pay you, right? That was the issue, and now you have an owner that puts $6 billion or $5 billion into a stadium. He paid $1 billion to St. Louis so that he could get out of St. Louis, right? And he's bringing in more stars the better. Like, this is what you always wanted.
I always wanted to play for a good owner. Back in those days, Eddie DeBartolo was the guy to play for at the 49ers.
Sure.
I mean, I wish I could have played for a guy like him, but, we didn't have that. And it's not all about Georgia. It was more about John Shaw. And John Shaw was the guy running the team. And John Shaw was, when you hear things later is that the Rams didn't have the money. But, I mean, look, people thought I was asking for all this money. I was just trying to get paid fairly. I was making $150,000. At one point, the highest I made with the Rams was $400. I mean, so – and running backs, guys that were drafted after me, were making $800, $900.
Right, and you were the people have to understand. Running backs were the franchise back then, right?
You were the franchise back in those days. And one thing is, when the media wrote something back in those days, people believed it. We had no Twitter, we had no Instagram, we had no way of telling our story. So when a beat writer wrote something for the team, well, they ain't gonna write in our favor. They're gonna write in the team's favor.
Sure.
So that's how I got crucified.
You also took a hard stance against Jeff Fisher and his offense, right? You said change needed to be happen, and Sean McVay has changed things. Like, you were right, okay? But McVay wasn't great in the last Super Bowl. What do you want to see from Sean McVay's team on Sunday?
Well, I don't say, in that Super Bowl, there was a lot of things going on in that Super Bowl. I just felt like that, and honestly, I said this before, we didn't have the right guy at quarterback. To me, that was it. And we didn't run the football like we should have. That was the first Super Bowl. In this game here, I feel like that we have the right guy at quarterback. I think we have the right – I know we have the right coach for sure, and I think we have the right defense. What I want to see is if we don't turn the football over – I've said this the last 3 weeks. If we don't turn the football over, we control the football game and we win the game easily. I'll say that Sunday for Sunday's game. Don't turn the ball over, we win this game easily.
The book is Watch My Smoke. It's the great Eric Dickerson, the Hall of Famer, the upright running style, the rec specs, the Jerry curl, the Trans Am. It's all in the book. E, thanks so much for joining us. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Man, thanks. Good seeing you, man.